You're listening to The Artist Athlete, episode 36. This podcast is dedicated to Circus. It's a place for professionals in the industry to share their stories, viewpoints, and information, and a place for outsiders to get a sneak peek into this world. I'm Shannon McKenna, and I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast and the founder of theartistathlete.com. And a special shout out, as always, to my Patreons. Y'all are the people who give as little as $1, as much as $30. Some people give more to keep this podcast going every week. And I'm so thankful for you guys. If you want to become a Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/theartistathlete. Every single penny goes back into the show. If you go to theartistathlete.com/podcasts now, we're starting to produce transcripts of the show. And that's because we can finally afford someone who can sit down and type the show out. So if you want to cite this for a college project, or if you have somebody who's differently abled and they want to consume this media, they can read it now instead of having to just rely on it in auditory form. And if you do become a Patreon who gives $30 a month or more to the podcast, I personally call you up. We have a little Skype sesh. Sometimes it goes on for like half an hour because I love talking to people. And you get to record a 30-second message that will play at the end of every episode. So last week, I got to call up Beth Russell in Maui, Hawaii. Here's a little snippet of what she had to say about the podcast.
I just want to let you know how life-changing it's been for me. I've been trying to find out where I fit in this industry, and there's so much of my past experiences that all fold into my aerial life, and it is just so cool. And then I got hurt actually in May. I hurt my back, and it was the first time that I hurt my body so much that I had to lay down in a bed for over 24 hours. It was really hard to get up and go to the bathroom. As I was down and out, one of my very good inspirations here on island, her name is Amy. I'm sure you'll meet her when you come. If you come, hope you come.
Oh yeah, I'm coming.
She was straight up she was like, oh my gosh, I just found this podcast. You need to start binge watching or binge listening to it. She's only 5 episodes in, but you just should listen to all of them. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. So your voice was one of the voices I listened to as I recovered and found something to do with my mind while I was hurt and I couldn't do anything with my body.
No way.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Girl.
And then it's just, I can't, I'm all words of life for you.
Thanks for talking, Beth. I've got nothing but words of life for you, too. I don't think I've ever said that before, but yeah, why not? Nothing but words of life, girl. If you want to have me call you up and talk to you, go to patreon.com/theartistathlete. All of the information's there and so much more. My guest today is Jack StockLynn. Specializing in dance trapeze, Jack bends gender and defies expectations. Embodying the history of queer identity in performance, he exemplifies the beauty of unshakable perseverance in the face of our collective sorrow. From the bright lights of Broadway, to the dust of an outdoor amphitheater, and to the fluorescent hum of grade school cafetoriums, no stage is too big and no crowd too small for Jack's uniquely empowering socio-circus message. Jack StockLynn, also known as Sir Cupcake, also has a whole circus. Sir Cupcake's queer circus is lifting hearts and opening minds by telling stories using circus arts, placing queer, transgender, and non-binary performers center stage using campy humor, tender soul, and the undeniable truth of their being. The queer circus journey leaves you more empowered to be you, unafraid and unashamed. Here's my interview with Jack StockLynn.
My name is Jack StockLynn, and I'm also Cirque Cupcake, and I run Cirque Cupcake's Queer Circus, and I perform as a character actor and aerialist.
Excellent. And how did you come upon Cirque Cupcake?
Well, I was looking for a way to address large groups of people in a gender-neutral fashion, and OK Cupcakes came about. Like, OK Cupcakes, let's do 10 more push-ups. La la la. Instead of, boys and girls, now we're going to line up.
Oh, gotcha.
So I was calling people cupcakes, and then it somehow, I turned into, like, Sir Cupcake. Like, the head of the cupcakes. I don't know.
Gotcha.
It's really silly.
This is really silly. Cupcakes are gender neutral.
But, like, the conversation of, like, oh, that could be a character and a person. I was in a bar in New York City while I was on tour with a show, talking. My best friend had flown out to hang out and see the show, and we were talking about something, and I was like, I need, like, a character, a thing that I do, and she's like, what about the cupcake thing, like what Sir Cupcake or something? And I'm like, wait a minute, there is a person there just in the name by itself that I could see.
How is Sir Cupcake? Okay, I always do this where I have questions, but then I kind of want to, for the sake of the audience, take it back to the beginning.
Right.
So let's do that first.
Okay.
So you grew up in Oregon.
Yes.
We're in Portland right now,
yeah,
giving this interview. And you grew up in...
Oregon City.
Oregon City.
Yeah.
Very cool. What was it like growing up in Oregon City?
Lonely.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because I grew up in the countryside outside of Oregon City, so the nearest neighbor was like a quarter mile away. Like, the community was who was next door, which is for a lot of people, but there were just not very many people next door. And I'm a real weirdo, so, like, normal small-town neighbors were like, okay, I guess.
And was there any circus in
No,
Oregon City
not at
as
all.
a child? Like,
No, I grew up doing theater and musicals, did some rock climbing and hiking and camping and horseback riding, and we would play around in the barn and, like, jump from the hayloft into the sawdust pit, totally safe.
Great.
What you do when you're a farm kid. So I got to play around with a lot of different things, but not really. Like, the gymnastics was, weird small town gymnastics, so I didn't like it. Dance was our dorky tap dance, which was great and a really fun foundation, but not necessarily circus training.
When did you find circus training?
I first trained as a clown. I went to theater school and trained as a clown for several years. From there, I specialized further with other clown teachers. Through that, I was like, whoa, this clown stuff is great, but what are they doing up there? That looks amazing.
When did you... I don't even know what the, like, politically correct word is now. Like, people say transition. Mm-hmm. Or when did you make the transition in your gender?
So finding the words was really tricky because transgender wasn't... It's actually a pretty new word. So when I was growing up, I was just like, queer? Like, queer wasn't even really a word. I was like, lesbian? Gay? I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out, like, language around who I am. And finally, eventually, the word transgender... Well, first transsexual and then transgender, and those words came. I was like, oh, something in there sounds familiar, but I don't want to do it the way that, there's the traditional story. I knew I was a boy from a very small age, and then now I take hormones, and I have all these surgeries, and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that's not really me. I'm pretty comfortable with who I am as a person. I don't really want to take hormones and change how I look significantly in that way. I don't want to grow a beard. I don't want to shave every day. That sounds so irritating. You know,
actually, that is the thing I envy, like, biological men for, is their ability to grow beards.
Yeah. I mean,
I would always
if I could choose and, like, just have a mustache,
yeah,
I'd be so into that. But you don't, it's gambling, Like, you don't get to choose.
That's true.
Maybe you get a beard. Maybe you don't.
Maybe you just get a patch right here.
Maybe you lose all your hair. Maybe you get to keep it. Maybe you get awesome muscles. Maybe, like, it's total gambling. You can look at your other family members and make a guess, but
Yeah.
you're not like, yes, I shall have an amazing mustache. No, you don't know. So I just have not wanted to go down that road. Mm-hmm. And I might someday. I reserve the right to choose again.
When you began your circus career, how did you identify?
I've identified as a man for 15 years. I changed my name. For me, that change included, like, this is who I am, this is my gender. Though, because I don't take hormones, when people meet me, they never think, like, oh. They might think, oh, that guy's gender is a little funny, but they don't think that's a man, generally.
Interesting.
Which is endlessly frustrating for me, but that's the struggle, I guess.
Well, you also live in a place that actually, like, people can be like, that person's gender is a little funny.
It's a wibbly wobbly.
Whereas, like, I feel like where I live, people would be like, that girl has short hair.
Actually, the weirdest thing, in places where people don't have as wibbly wobbly gender, I get gendered correctly for me more often because they're like,
interesting.
Short hair, lots of muscles, no boobs, must be a dude. So in Portland, where people are like, you look queer and weird, probably. I don't know. People make more assumptions in a different way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Never thought of that. What was I'm interested to hear, like, your experience in being cast in different circus productions.
I've had to teach people how to cast me in a lot of ways by just doing my own shows. I'm like, this is what I can do. This is what one could cast me as. This is the kinds of things I do. I perform in a lot of shows where there isn't a gender. Like, I just did a show as a cat. Like, what gender is the cat? Who knows?
Right.
It's irrelevant.
Right.
So doing stuff where I'm a significantly different kind of character or persona is more common. Mm-hmm. I have performed, like, as a lady. I'm using air quotes, which you can't see on the podcast.
Thank you for that.
But, like, it's not, I don't know. I do okay at it, but like, I wouldn't cast me as that.
Right? Well, gender is this kind of, like, weird performative thing.
Absolutely.
Right? And in circus, how do you have a circus that challenges gender? Because in some ways, I feel like circus can be so heteronormative.
Oh, my goodness.
But in other ways, even in its heteronormativity, there are ways that it even subverts itself. So how in Sir Cupcake Circus do you specifically address those questions or bring it to light?
A lot of times I talk to the artist specifically about how they want to present themselves, how they want to present themselves in the show, what kinds of things they want to do. And we talk a lot about costuming, like, do you want to wear a leotard unitard? Do you want to wear something else? And we build based on sort of that comfort level of the artist. I've done things where I'll sew binders, chest binders, into costumes or other things to de-emphasize or emphasize certain parts of people's bodies. Or, like, sew things on the legs, so we're looking at someone's legs instead of their chest if they're uncomfortable with their breast or something. But it's a lot about talking to the artist and then from there playing with beyond just the physical presentation of what you see as the audience. You're like, oh, well, this is a person that's tall and has long arms and legs, and we can't really tell what else. Like, haha, tricked you. We're all humans. But taking that and looking at gendered movement as well, and looking at, okay, women are supposed to move fluidly or something, I don't know, and playing with more choppy movement and playing with stronger movement and playing with standing in power and making different choices. So in some ways it's taking gender out of it, and in some ways highlighting gender.
When you're doing your own training, how aware are you of gendered movement?
I guess I don't always focus on sharing a gender with my movement, though. My main focus is on sharing my heart or the story of the moment.
Yeah.
And that the movement then serves that heart story that I'm sharing. And whether that includes gender or not, in the context of it, then I'll put that in. or the thinking about that in. There are times when I don't think about it at all.
You have pretty, like, I almost said crazy, but these pretty, like, extreme concepts for shows.
Yeah.
Like, Sir Cupcake goes to the future.
Yeah.
Sir Cupcake goes back in time. Where do you come up with those? Or what were the initial inspirations for these?
I wanted a framework that I could do any kind of show with. The idea of Sir Cupcake has a magic time traveling pocket watch.
Naturally.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like you have. But he doesn't really know how to use it. So it keeps kind of messing up. And so he tries to go back and I'm kind of sometimes chronically late. Maybe. I might be. And so that idea came from that. I'm like, oh, if I just had a little time travel watch, I could like tick back 10 minutes to show up on time. Everything's amazing. Yes. But because the Sir Cupcake character is like bumbling in a way. Like he's a human. Like messes things up. He's not perfect.
Right.
Of course he would not be able to use the time travel pocket watch and would end up going back to 1930 when he meant to go back 10 minutes. I wanted to be able to go anywhere. So
yeah,
I made a show concept that could go anywhere.
Take me through the production of like a Sir Cupcake show.
Yeah, okay. So it takes me like a year to make a show, but really it takes like the full process from like, I think I'm gonna to show is like 3 or 4 years.
Whoa, okay.
Because I often am thinking like things just like hibernate, little baby ideas running around.
He's pointing to his belly right now.
Yeah, little baby ideas.
Yeah, okay.
They are like, hey, I think that maybe we should go to the future. And I'm like, it's not your turn. Like right now, I'm working on a show where we're going into another dimension. Oh. And that idea has been burbling around since we were in the future.
So you have the idea, it sits in your stomach, it burbles around.
It burbles around for a couple years.
Do this. And you're like, shh, we're doing something else. And then it burbles out.
Yeah, it's its turn, basically. So while I'm in the gross 3 months of actually making the show where there's like people in the rehearsal room and I'm like, why am I doing this? This is a terrible idea. That's when the next show is like, oh, but this next show, I'm like, it's really not your turn. But I've learned that if I start writing down those ideas that come up while I'm in the middle of making another show, if I start writing those down, then by the time the show I'm in the middle of making is done, the next show is like half-baked. Oh. And it's like ready to have a time and attention put onto it.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I have to make shows apparently. Okay, so then the first show is done, the one that we're on.
Okay.
And then I am sad that one's done for like a month or two, and then doing paperwork and whatever else with the show. And then I start looking at who are the people in the community that I want to pull from, who are artists from other places I might want to bring in, looking at grant writing and funding, things like that. And then start pulling visual images of what the world might look like or what it feels like. This is going to sound weird, but what it tastes like what kind of like sensation when it hits the body, what I want it to, experience like. And so then I go to there's a core group of people that I work with, that I've been working with for several years. Mm-hmm. And I go to them, I'm like, this is what I'm thinking. And then we talk more and it becomes more fleshed out until now we're at the point where we're looking at script stuff and storylines and looking at what is the core concept that we want to be talking about and what do we want the audience to leave with.
Are those core concepts like, because I get the feeling that in Sir Cupcake goes back in time, the core concept is not like the 1930s, right? Where do those or the deeper meanings or core concepts come from?
Those usually come from whatever I'm torturing myself with, like whatever I'm going through. So the last show we made was called Sir Cupcake Square Circus Goes Home, and it was about now. And I was writing it before the election of presidential times that just happened. But I was like, this is very timely. Well, crap, I guess we're doing this show, you know? So that idea for me that I was struggling with was, how do I feel self-worth, and how do I do work that I love to do when I'm hearing negative messages about transgender people, queer people, all kinds of things aimed at me or people like me or people like my friends. How do we go about continuing to make work and be vibrant humans when the world outside is pushing us down? And so the Cupcake Square Circus show was all about strategies that I use and that people within the show use. And it's not talking about, we're not like teaching, it's not didactic, it's like actively, like Sir Cupcake lands in this terrible land where everyone's hiding and living in a dumpster and nobody's talking to each other. And it's like, where are my friends? And so he goes to find his friends, like we have to do in real life. Like, you have to go find your people, right? Yeah. You're wherever you end up, you have to go find your people. So we go find my people, and this person is sad because they think they have to be normal, and they're really an incredible strong woman, but they think they have to behave normally. And this person is sad because they're a really beautiful dancer, but their parents think they should get a regular day job. So they're sad because they're at a job that isn't feeding their soul. And we talk through like each person's strategy in a way, like, oh, maybe they go to therapy, and maybe therapy is terrible, and maybe they try to, then their friends just say, okay, just dance it out, buddy. And then they're like, yeah, I do need to just dance it out. Someone described my shows as like a revival. Like, oh, I guess, maybe. But because the goal of the show is not only the show and amazing circus and having an adventure on stage, but it's also the adventure the audience gets to experience. So I think that's part of what I think of as queer theater, is theater that is intentionally interactive, isn't the right word, but inclusive of the audience. Like, there are specific times and places for the audience to be a part of the story in a way.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, so the last show we did, the Sir Cupcake Square Circus Goes Home, one of the strategies for combating the angry voice that tells you you're not good enough was to write down what the voice says and tear it up. And so at intermission, we gave the audience an opportunity to do that. So they wrote down things that the voice was saying that to them that hurt them and hurt their hearts. And then later in the show, we tore them up and turned them into glitter and sparkles and amazingness. Cool. So that's a part of the work together. Okay, audience, we want to get rid of this negative voice that's telling us that we're not good enough. And we're pretty sure we're not the only people that hear that.
Right.
We're pretty sure that you and the audience are experiencing that too.
Right.
So let's get rid of it together.
Why do you think circus was the medium that you chose to do this work through?
Because it's really hard. It is really hard. You're never done.
Nope.
You're never good enough. You're never, even if you're the best circus person in the world, you have to keep training. You're not finished. I don't know. Something about that impossibleness is like, yeah, I want that. That's weird. But
I want that suffering. I want that.
I want to work really hard and go sideways. But also, it includes so many art forms in one moment. When I think about theater, it feels talky and frozen. When I think about dance, it's like movie, but moving around, but there's not often a story or something, not always, you know, or art, it's just static, or music, it's nice, but then you're not seeing anything. So when I think about circus in particular, it has everything, and they all have to work together, and I just like that.
This podcast is brought to you by The Artist Athlete. Did you know that The Artist Athlete is more than just a podcast? It's a growing online resource for students of the aerial arts to deepen their journey to badassery by accessing techniques approved by physical therapists and master coaches in the industry. Our current spotlight is on the fundamentals of aerial alignment, a practical manual for hanging upside down. This online manual is a step-by-step guide. It is complete with photos, videos, and exercises that you can implement immediately to help you gain the strength and awareness you need for an aerial practice that promotes shoulder health and longevity and good posture upright, so you don't walk around like a gorilla. But don't just take my word for it. Here's Circus physical therapist Dr. Jen Crane of Cirque Physio to tell you more.
The fundamentals of aerial alignment is an absolute must-have for every aerialist of every level. I can't even tell you how many shoulder injuries I treat that are a direct result of rushing past the basics in an attempt to get a trick too soon. In the manual, Shannon deconstructs the fundamentals, including the correct muscular engagement to safely arrive in these positions and the rationale for why it matters. Of course, in addition to all of these fabulous pearls of wisdom, the book is also ridiculously fun to read. It's been lovingly garnished with the Shannon humor we all know and love.
Thanks, Jen. Cirque Physio is also featured in the book to give scientific insight into why it all works. Pick up your copy today by going to theartistathlete.com and clicking e-manuals. Listeners of the podcast can get a 10% discount by typing in the offer code PODCAST at checkout. Again, that's theartistathlete.com, offer code PODCAST. Now, back to the show. What attracts you, or what do you think you love about trapeze specifically? Because that is your primary discipline.
Yeah.
Single point trapeze.
Yep, dance trapeze. I like the bar. I like having the option to have really relaxed stillness in a way. Not that I'm just sitting on the bar staring at people, but if I wanted to, I totally could. And I like having the ropes. Because I like to do a lot of shapes and things and moving around in the ropes and I like rope a lot. Like, rope was the first apparatus I fell in love with. I don't know, trapeze has that, like, it's just this lovely little triangle, and it's got this nice bar, and then these ropes you can play on.
Right.
And I like the spinning.
To me, also, I think what's interesting about rope also is like this, but two aerial apparatuses that, and we used to always talk about this in school, how there is a bit of, like, a gender to certain disciplines.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And it feels to me very much like both single point trapeze and rope don't have as much of that on it. How much of, or do you ever consciously kind of like go against those norms or seek out performers who do that?
Maybe I'm going through a catalog. I'm like, wait a minute.
It's such that would be a really meta thing to do.
Right? No,
Right?
because I've hired both male and female straps artists. I've hired aerialists of all kinds of genders. Mm-hmm. Dancers of whatever gender. I guess no. It doesn't occur to me. I don't think about it.
Yeah.
Because when I'm looking at an artist to hire them, I'm looking for some kind of spark in a way. And I could care less what apparatus they do if that person is the right person.
How do you know that out of a person? Do you watch them? Do you go to where they perform? Do you look at it? Can you tell a spark on video when you're
video
casting?
Video is harder.
Yeah.
I have to trust a gut reaction more. Video. I mean, I look at videos of myself. I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah.
You know, but I know from audience reaction, like, that what I'm seeing on video is not the full truth of what I do. So I have to believe that for myself, right? Otherwise,
right.
Otherwise, what am I doing? 'Cause what? So I have to believe that that's true for other people. Actually, someone I hired from video and from a recommendation. I go with recommendations a lot. I talk to people. Mm-hmm. Like, before I even talk to an artist, I've talked to other people about them, probably several different people, because being able to work with someone is really important with me, or for me, and how someone works with a group, because it can be really an important part of the process. So I watched the videos and I was like, I don't know. And then I talked on the phone with the artist, and I was like, yes, like 100% yes. And then I went back and watched the videos again. I was like, oh, okay, now I'm seeing the things that I heard in the conversation that were exciting to me and interesting.
Interesting.
So I guess in a little, I have to know what I'm looking for in the video.
Right. Are you creator as well as director?
So back in the old days, back when I wear like as many hats as I could put on my head, I would do that.
Yeah.
I can't say the quality was amazing. It was definitely full of heart, and I had my little stamp on everything, but the more I've gotten into it, the more I parse things out. So I have someone who is in charge of costumes. I have someone else who's doing lights. I have someone else that's directing that isn't me. And I've tried different directors. I'm going a second round with the latest director, who is actually my partner.
Nice.
And I have, so I have a whole team of people that are doing things, which is hard to give up that, like, control. But
yeah,
the results are so much better, and I cry less, so I'll take it.
Less emotional turmoil.
Exactly.
More good sleep at night.
Yeah.
Though maybe if your partner's the director, that's not so much.
That makes it harder to, like, leave rehearsal. We actually just had a conversation about that. Like, okay, we have to figure out how to end rehearsal in a way that we can play with the cats or, like, go for a walk or, like, go to the grocery store and not be like,
yeah. What strategies do you employ for that?
Well, we're still working. It's new.
Okay.
New strategies.
Right on.
Thing one is making a time to debrief about rehearsal that's specific. And I think that's going to be the major thing.
Nice. Yeah.
And then making a time before the next rehearsal to talk about rehearsal plan and things like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's like the chamber going through.
Yeah, exactly. Like chamber in, chamber out.
Mm-hmm. So where do you see the future of Sir Cupcake?
The show I'm building right now, I'm building with touring in mind. So I would love, in my heart of hearts, to have like 35, 40 people in the cast. But
whoa, yeah.
Touring, no, I need like 10 people. Because the big money hasn't come through yet. Maybe someday, if you're listening and you have some spare cash to throw at a queer circus, please let me know.
Heck yeah.
So building set that is in boxes that nest and building a smaller cast, and so things like that.
Have you ever toured before?
We took, I've toured with other companies, and then I've taken Sir Cupcake to events with a floor only, so no aerial, sadly.
Sure.
But we've done some festivals and things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Are they mostly queer-oriented events?
One, we did the Beaverton Pride, the very first Beaverton, Oregon Pride Festival.
Beaverton, Oregon. Okay,
yes,
that's a place.
Beaverton,
Gotcha.
Oregon. It is a place. It is here. It's actually the Intel and Nike are the businesses that are there.
Oh,
so if you've heard of those two, you'll be like,
a couple of times, yeah.
Beaverton. And then other things that we've done are not at all queer. Oregon Country Fair.
Yeah.
It's like weird, sure.
Right.
But not queer specific.
As far as your own development as an artist and as a... Yeah, mostly as an artist, not as a human. Who cares about that?
Meh.
How do you balance that with all of the work that you're doing to create shows, to write grants, to have a partner who you can go through a clean chamber with to get to the other side? When and how do you find time to develop your own work?
It's sometimes a struggle. A part of the extended process for the Sir Cupcake like full-length shows is that I need to have time to train for myself within that. So, like right now, because we're not in active rehearsal, I'm doing my own act development because I have to do that now if I want to make something new for my next show.
Interesting.
I have to do that development now.
Right.
So that I'm not paying attention to that or trying to find time for that while I'm in the middle of developing 10 other people.
Yeah.
Some of that is just calendar time management.
But do you create a new act every...
No, sometimes I'll take an act and twist it and rearrange it, and like many of us do, where you
totally.
These are the tricks I do, and sometimes I do them in this order, and sometimes I do them in this order.
Sometimes I'm wearing this costume. Sometimes it's sad music. Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So sometimes that is more what's happening, or I'm playing with the texture of movement really aggressively. So I'm like, really pushing one aspect of movement quality or something. Mm-hmm. But if I want to do any of that work, I have to do that now. Like, there's no time in the month before the show.
Sure.
Everyone else they're crying about that. I'm like, well, my act's done. I don't know what your problem is. It's sometimes really a struggle. Like, I have to carve out time. No, I'm training right now. Yeah. I need to be in condition to do my work. Yeah. So that's sometimes really hard.
Sure. Yeah. Do you do any performances outside of Cirque Cupcake?
Definitely.
Yeah. What else are you involved in or doing?
Do Jump, Extremely Physical Theater. That's a company I've been involved with for a long time. I work with Piss Magic, which is another local Portland company. Night Flight Aerial is a studio here. They do shows. And then I started looking at other things. I did a show called Lemon Drop in Streb. It was like a showcase show, but in New York. So trying to send my work to other places. Nice. I had the great fortune of working with a company called Bearded Lady Productions, and they did a show in Portland called The Girly Show this summer, and they pulled in, there was artists from all over, like Brazil, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, like everywhere.
Nice. Yeah.
I was like, oh, just little me, but it was really nice to be in a show with amazing people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And that show in particular was about a sailor and about transgender stuff in a way.
Whoa.
So that show was made for me, but that show was actually made several years ago, and they sort of cast a sailor wherever they go. But because of who I am and the possibilities that are present within who I am as a person and who I am as an artist, and just what my body looks like, we could really play with gender in a really amazing way. So that's, again, that teaching people like how I can perform, like how to cast me. If you want to cast someone that can play male and female, as long as I'm not talking, you're listening to me, you're like, how could that guy ever sound like a dude? Like, don't make me talk, honey.
Right?
Strong silent type, okay. Sold. Teaching people how to cast me.
Right.
Then I do more shows.
Gotcha. And how do you teach people how to cast you?
By showing them videos of what I've already done.
By being like,
Look at this sailor. He's very handsome. Look, he can also look like a lady. Look, he can also look like a confused young man. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Honestly, don't know.
Yeah.
When I went to theater school, and they're like, "You'll never get cast as a man." I'm like, "You watch."
Made a whole career.
Don't never me.
But I mean, then I think that it's also kind of you're not just being cast as a man. You
are
or you are a man for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
So do you feel like it's necessary to be represented the way you move about in the world on stage the same way?
Not always, but I guess I don't audition for parts that say, looking for lady aerialist.
Right. Yeah.
That's not me. I don't do tissue for a lot of the same reasons. Like, and for better or worse, like the gendered aerial apparatus stuff we were talking about. Like, that's not me.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Right on.
Which isn't to shame that work, because that's gorgeous and amazing work. And there's some totally badass people and women that do tissue.
Absolutely.
Like, make something stunning.
There are totally badass men also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who are doing really great tissue work.
Yeah. But that's not me.
You talked earlier, and I really loved this, about the humanness or the open-heartedness of your work, and how, ultimately, that's really the key of all of this. And maybe this is a generalization as well, or just based on my own experiences, but I meet so many people in this community who have had so many hardships and have really had to create a lot of walls to protect themselves. Have you ever had to come to terms with that to create from this place of openness?
Very definitely. And that was a conscious choice I made at a certain point. If I was going to survive, I had to figure out a way to be open and create times and places to be open. And stage is one of those places that has always felt like a place that I could share freely who I am, even through a character. Like, this is still, like, my heart is coming through, even if I'm a cat. There's still some part of my heart that is being shared with the audience. And so, I don't know, I just had to.
Yeah.
I had to make a way to do that. Therapy, honestly, also. Therapy's amazing.
Yeah.
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 Get some therapy, y'all.
That's really good advice.
And if your therapist sucks, get a different one. Like, if you're a therapist, you're going to therapy and they're like, blah, 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 but gay people are bad. Like, no, get a different therapist. That's garbage. There are not a lot of times and places when we get to see queer, trans, LGBTQ, whatever, people being celebrated and being themselves. And I guess in work, when I do it, I want to create an opportunity for the audience to celebrate someone queer, me, like, great, but also an opportunity for the audience to celebrate other queer people and also the queerness that they themselves have. I don't mean to use queer as a way to exclude people who are straight. I mean it like anyone that's different. Sure. I use it personally to denote not straight, but I don't. It's Sir Cupcake's queer circus, but you don't have to be queer or identify as queer to come and enjoy and engage and to find resonance with the artists on stage. Anything that is human for me, if I dig deep enough to the core of what that is, I'm pretty sure there's a component of it that anyone else in the audience is going to react to and resonate with, you know?
Yeah.
That struggle, just from the last show, the struggle of feeling like society was telling me I'm not good enough. Everyone has heard that in some version or another in their life. And I'm like, oh man, that's a real struggle that we all have. I guess what I do as an artist is look for those real places so that I can connect with those real places in other people so that we can have an experience together just about what it means to be human. And maybe in that what it means to be human experience, I can get someone to say like, oh, that gender weirdo over there maybe is also a human. And maybe they deserve my love, compassion, care, everything else.
My final question for you is, what advice would you give to yourself at the beginning of all of this?
1, go to therapy. 2, you're a man, quit crying about it. 3, awesome. Stop hanging around with people that don't believe in you and don't show you love in a way that makes sense.
Oh, work, yeah.
And find your people that do love you in a way that makes sense. I've got a whole list here. We're up to 4. Okay, 5. Find better teachers sooner, even if it means you have to travel. Maybe this audience, traveling is sometimes hard for transgender people. Good Lord, what happens at the airport is unpleasant, my dear. Yeah, traveling, finding new teachers, better teachers, finding out how, and maybe a circus school, maybe not. I didn't go to circus school, but find the best people to learn from that are doing something somewhat similar to what you want to do, even if it's not exactly the same. Like, you can synthesize the skills to yourself.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Yay! And all the places, where can people find you?
Oh, at the Sir Cupcake on Facebook and Instagrams, and sircupcake.com. Sir is in yes, sir. Cupcake is in delicious-treat.com. And also sircupcakesqueercircus.com for the whole adventure.
Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That was my interview with Jack StockLynn. It was such a pleasure to talk to Jack, and I'm so inspired by what he's putting out in the world. I really think that the role of an artist in society is to highlight our universal humanity, No matter what your skin color is, no matter what your gender or sexual orientation, there is something inside of all of us that needs to come out and can connect with other people. And through Queer Circus, Jack is doing just that. He suggested a couple of strategies that he shows in his work that, surprise, surprise, I think are pretty universal, even if you identify with the gender that you were born to. I think that if you want to be an artist, if you want to create, if you want to be a person in the world, there are some pretty important things that you have to recognize. The first is to find your people. People who have the same goals as you, and not just people who have the same goals as you, but people who want to watch you succeed and fulfill those goals. I think we've all been in toxic environments where we have had an idea of what we want and the people around us have not been supportive of that, or have said that they are supportive, but in other ways kind of find ways to cut us down or not believe in our vision. And when you find the people who believe in you, man, you can do some really cool stuff. The second strategy is to figure out what specifically makes you feel not good enough. Whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, whether you're something in between, whether you don't recognize any of it, you're still a person in the world, and the world, consumer society, all sorts of things, our history is telling us certain things that may or may not be true. And if they're not true, but a whole bunch of signals are giving you the information, it's hard to feel like who you are inside is justified. I'm here to tell you, you are justified in who you are. But the way to figure that out is to identify what voices you've internalized, what voices in your head are telling you, I'm not good enough. Write them out, rip them up, and if you're a true circus artist, you can turn it into confetti. And the last little tidbit is to make work. In the interview, Jack talks about how he has to make shows to make shows. So there's always new ideas coming at him because he's always creating. Making work is like, and when I say making work, I mean being an artist and being creative. Making creative work is a muscle. Just like you can train to do more pull-ups, you can train to have more ideas and more inspirations. The key is, and I have to quote Joel Baker from episode 30, I always go back to his list, always be working on a new idea. Jack is always working on a new idea, and that, along with his heart-led practice, is what is causing him to create work and giving a voice to a community that so badly needs one in this time. Thanks for listening, guys. If you want to find Jack StockLynn or Sir Cupcake's Queer Circus online, you can go to thesircupcake.com, on Instagram at thesircupcake. As always, I'm online at theartistathlete.com, on Instagram for training tips and inspiration of the aerial sort at _artist_athlete, and on Facebook at theartistathlete. To support the podcast specifically, go to patreon.com/theartistathlete, become a Patreon. All the proceeds from that go directly back into making this podcast, one that is completely sponsor-free, meaning that I can highlight anyone and everyone I choose to. Thanks for listening, friends, fans, and enemies. Talk at you next week. The Artist Athlete Podcast is supported solely by donations from people like you. Here's what some of those people have to say.
Hi, I'm Katie Betts, and I'm the director of Shared Culture Concepts, which is a full-service marketing company for circus and performing arts. You can visit our website at www.sharedcultureconcepts.com. On the website, you can find a copy of our ebook, which covers basics of marketing, specifically for circus educators, coaches, studio owners, and circus artists.
Aloha! My name is Beth Russell, and I live on the beautiful island of Maui, Hawaii. I am an aerial artist and movement instructor specializing in chakra yoga to keep me balanced and grounded. I play with silks, trapeze, lyra, rope, acro, aerial yoga and dance, slacklining, pole, bungee, and climbing. Really anything that goes up and allows me to explore 3D space. You can find my dedicated aerial page on Instagram at Maui Aerialist. If you find yourself coming to Maui, let's play.
Hey there, friends, fans, and enemies. This is Chris Alston, Patreon of the Artist Athlete Podcast, straps artist and lyra performer and acrobat out of Greenville, South Carolina. So, if you're ever passing through, make sure to stop in and see me and my friends. We have a wonderful space, and we'd love to see you.
Hi, my name is Erica Lee. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm an aerialist. I teach performing arts to elementary school during the day and do pole and swings and ropes by night. I really like the Artist Athlete podcast because it gives me a lot of circus goals to look forward to. It gives me a lot of insight on what's going on around the world in circus, and that's why I'm on Patreon.
Hello all. Thank you for tuning in to the Artist Athlete podcast. I am Opal Schwartz from Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you're ever in the cities, feel free to stop by the Aviary Minneapolis. It's a great time. With that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and goodbye.